Safety in Formula One has improved dramatically since the deaths of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger back in 1994.
The FIA, FOM, along with the teams and designers, have done a highly impressive job
Of improving the cars and the tracks.
Many injuries and deaths have been avoided in F1 and other categories, and we've become used to drivers walking away from huge crashes.
This is why the tragic Suzuka accident has shocked the whole world of motorsport.
As we hope and pray for Jules Bianchi, what can we learn for the future?
Firstly, the time of the race start. The regulations allow for a 2-hour race within a 4-hour period.
But a 3 p.m. start in Japan leaves only 2 hours 15 of daylight, which could put pressure on decisions. The imminent arrival of the typhoon was well known, but it was wet earlier in the day too, and aquaplaning didn't appear to be a major issue, as intermediate tyres were used for most of the green flag race laps.
However, consideration should be given to earlier start times at races such as Japan, Malaysia and Australia.
The fading light wouldn't have helped, and I wonder just how many drivers wore clear or vision-enhancing yellow visors. Tinted visors, in my experience, hinder visibility in those conditions. We've had close calls with recovery vehicles in the past, and I've often voiced my fear that there was an unnecessary risk. I mentioned my trepidation again in commentary last Sunday.
Are others going to be aquaplaning on or spinning off on the same point? Something that's a bit sensitive to me, because it happened to me. There is no one-size-fits-all solution here.
Cars have to be recovered from the barriers or gravel traps, of course, and it's not practical or necessary to put out the safety car for every incident.
But we all have to be more tolerant of deploying the red flags and the safety car. But I believe we must cancel the time-consuming aspect of letting lapped cars unlap themselves. That's a deterrent.
Certain corners are more difficult from a driver's point of view, both in terms of driving skills and visibility of incidents, flags and lights. Dunlop Corner in Suzuka is one of those, and a vehicle and marshal on live track is not the right solution. I speak from experience. 20 years ago in similar conditions and at the same corner, I walked away from a terrible crash. I very nearly hit the recovery vehicle, which was collecting another car. But sadly, I did hit a marshal, causing him serious injuries. I was officially reprimanded that day, and it upset me, not only because of the injury to the marshal, but also because I'd been on the team radio demanding that they red flag the race. In those conditions, you can barely see your dashboard sometimes, let alone flags and lights. I so wish now I'd been even more combative and vociferous on the issue. It's in exactly these conditions when it's a bit critical, and with aquaplaning, you know, if it's slippery, we can adjust our speed, but if it's aquaplaning, we have no control over that. A crane would be a better solution. Indeed, there is one at the next series of corners in Suzuka. But this still involves marshals in the danger zone and cars dangling at a dangerous height. Frankly, I'd rather take my chances against a broken down or crashed F1 car, which is the same height and will deform. However, that may cause cars to fly, and then many more are at risk. The green lights and flags displayed immediately after the crash site were correctly deployed. This was not a factor in the Bianchi crash. He was in a yellow flag zone when the incident occurred. Closed cockpits have been explored for some time now with great science and thought. It's debatable, however, in such a violent crash that some kind of head protection would have helped Jules. And closures create other issues, such as exiting the car quickly in the case of fire or accidents, visibility with the structures required, rain and dirt on the screen, fogging up and cockpit temperatures. Single-seaters have always been fundamentally open cockpit. Sports and GT cars also have a roof, of course, but drivers do get injured and killed in those. Finally, we come to the biggest problem. Double-waved yellow flags mean slow down and be prepared to stop. But you can show 100 yellow flags and it won't give the drivers any more grip. And of course, he can also suffer a puncture or car failure too. In the same race, we saw Ericsson spin the Caterham off behind the safety car. Under double yellows, in the dry, the drivers are expected to slow by at least half a second between light boards. In the wet, more. It's very inexact and open to interpretation. The drivers are under pressure to lose as little time as possible. They're hardwired to compete. They can't help themselves, and they just don't slow enough. So they need outside help, and we must introduce a speed limit system, a defined slow zone in race conditions, just as they do when a safety car is deployed. The FIA met with the team bosses on Saturday morning in Sochi to discuss such a system. Then the drivers will know that they can't lose out and they'll slow considerably, protecting themselves and the corner workers. Motorsport will always be dangerous, we can't hide from that fact. Jules Bianchi is a fine young man and a shining talent. We couldn't be more sad, but we must learn and improve from this in his honour.